Hello, everybody. Welcome to Charting with Dan. I'm Dan Murrell. Joining me, Lon Harris. How's it going, Lon? How are you?
Pretty good.
You know, a lot of times people ask, why do we do this show so late? Because they report on the box office numbers on Sunday night. And this week is a great example of why we wait to do the show so late. Because last night and up until this morning, the story was that Joker had retaken the #1 spot, that it had narrowly beaten out Maleficent, which was in #2. However, the actuals came in, and it turns out it's the opposite. Maleficent holds on barely to the #1 spot. Let's look at the top 5. When the actuals came in, it flip-flopped from the original reports yesterday. Razor thin, almost a tie, essentially. But Maleficent just barely holds on to the #1 spot of the weekend box office, with Joker there at #2. Maleficent dropped slightly less percentage-wise week to week than the original Maleficent film did. However, Maleficent to date has yet to gross as much as the first Maleficent film did in its opening weekend. So a little bit of a hollow victory, even though it was an upset victory. As I mentioned, everyone had said Joker retakes #1. Turns out that the Joker estimates were a little high, maybe Maleficent's were a little low. Anyways, the actual numbers came in. Maleficent holds on to #1 by just that much.
Yeah, just if she had danced on some stairs, would have been safer.
If only she danced on some stairs that could then become a tourist attraction.
Them,
I know, right? Joker dropped less than 40% to take that second place spot. Still, though, no bad news really at this point when it comes to Joker. It is a phenomenally successful movie. As a matter of fact, let's see where Joker ranks to date in Joaquin Phoenix's filmography as an actor. Let's take a look at that chart right now. You know what? That's actually now behind a paywall.
Oh, right. Yes, I heard about
on Box Office Mojo, they did a redesign, and they're now officially part of IMDb Pro, which means that some of the data is behind a paywall. One of that being the filmography. So you now can't look at Joaquin Phoenix's filmography unless you go behind the paywall. But that's, you know what? We're a professional organization. We're gonna get that. We'll get that fixed up. We'll get the box office. We'll get the IMDb Pro thing. We'll don't worry about that. So maybe next week we can talk about Joaquin Phoenix's filmography. However, stuff like genres, data by genre or brand or franchise or by actor, unfortunately now all behind a paywall. Right. So we got to get that fixed.
I bet it's doing better than You Were Never Really Here, but we can't be sure.
We can't be sure. So that's fine. We'll get next week. We're going to work on that.
Fair enough.
Lon, as I mentioned, Joker is doing really well. We've talked about how it does with the Batman franchise. One of the things we like to do is just look at it day by day, track how it's doing on a daily basis at this point in its release compared to the other films. So let's get those daily figures, of course, adjusted for inflation, so we can kind of get some perspective on it. Here's how Joker is doing compared to the other films in the Batman series on a day by day basis through 24 days of release. Adjusted for inflation. You know what? Actually, that information, Lon, is not even behind the paywall.
It's just nowhere.
Inflation-adjusted daily information is just gone. It used to be that you could pull up a page and it had a little drop-down box, and you could select adjust for inflation.
Right.
And it would pop out what it was, and I could just pull that in. I could look at. I could just look at it right there, write the numbers down, make the chart. Unfortunately, that information is just gone. Like that functionality is gone.
It's just they deleted it from their service.
So in order to do that, I would have to manually look up the box office by date, and then look up the ticket price and adjust. It's a whole thing. I'm going to have to figure out how to do it, but I don't know how to do it yet. So daily adjusted for inflation, unfortunately, not information that's available. However, weekend by weekend. This is the Joker's 4th weekend out in theaters. Obviously, that it's doing incredibly well, but when it comes to 4th weekends, because there's so many movies that come out at the end of the year, it didn't quite get to the top of the heap as far as 4th weekends go. So again, adjusted for inflation, let's look at the biggest 4th weekend performances in box office history. This is also actually, it's not just daily numbers adjusted for inflation. There's no weekly adjusted for inflation numbers. As a matter of fact, the only adjusted for inflation numbers that I could find that are still available on Box Office Mojo is the all-time list. Which is nice.
Yeah.
But
well, it's an odd thing, because you would think if the goal was get everybody to sign up for IMDb Pro so they could use Box Office Mojo, you would add to Box Office Mojo's features, not take them away.
Right. You would think so. You would think that if you're going to put it behind a paywall and ask people to pay for it, that you would at least offer the same service.
If not an enhanced service. Yeah, like HBO is saying, come get HBO Max. They're not offering less shows.
No, they're offering more shows. But no, actually, it's not just the things that are behind the paywall. A lot of the features gone. Like you cannot just adjust for inflation anymore, except for, as I mentioned, that one list where it's just the master adjusted for inflation.
Like, sign up for HBO Max, but no Sopranos.
Yeah.
You haven't earned them.
Luckily, Lon, it's not adjusted for inflation is not the only metric we look at the show. We've got the bits index.
That's right.
We invented the bits index. The butts in the seats. Joker's doing really well. Let's look at the bits index for how it's doing as far as tickets sold at this part in its run. Let's look at those numbers. Gone. The whole estimated tickets sold thing completely gone.
Wow.
Just vanished. No, not behind a paywall. No functionality. Gone. So the bits index, again, I can do it, but what I have to do is look up the number for each specific film and then find the ticket price for that year and then do the math by hand, which is a lot of time for one graphic. I'm going to have to figure out how to do it, but right now, the show, as it stands, when I was able to use the site, it was a tough thing to get together every Monday. Now, almost impossible.
They've lost their box office mojo.
They've lost a lot of box office mojo. So the bits index also not behind a paywall. Gone, stripped away from the site. Wow. Can't do it. Can't do it.
For now. We'll figure something.
I have to now figure out a workaround because they have decided that behind the paywall there should be less than what used to be there.
Some sort of spreadsheet thinking we could figure out. We'll work on it.
But Lon, we've been really hard on Box Office Mojo so far because of this redesign and for whatever reason they said they pulled their users and they got rid of some stuff based on whatever.
I can't imagine they pulled their users and their users were like, we just want less. Just give us less.
Some of them did apparently, but they did do a complete site redesign. It is a little cleaner. The design of Box Office Mojo is a little outdated. So I actually wanted to take a minute and feature that new outlook. Okay. This is one of the most popular charts. This is the list of the highest grossing movie every year domestically.
Great.
Probably a chart that's looked at a lot on Box Office Mojo. Let's take a look at the new design. Yeah. Let's take a look at the new layout there. As you can see, a little bit cleaner. The numbers are a little bit more put together. Now, here's the interesting thing. You may be looking at that chart and saying like, oh, I thought Avatar came out in 2009. Or you might be looking at 2017 and saying, like, Beauty and the Beast. Wait, I thought that Star Wars The Last Jedi was the highest grossing film of 2017.
You read my mind.
And you would be right, because this new version of the chart, if you look at that screen there, right next to the year, there's a little arrow that says calendar grosses. Now that is the default view on the domestic yearly box office of Box Office Mojo now. Now what that means is that they stop counting the gross for that year in this chart on December 31st, which is why The Last Jedi is not number one in 2017 and why Avatar is listed as the highest grossing film in 2010, because those made a lot of money after the calendar year went over.
Right. So this is looking at, of all the movies literally that played in theaters between January 1st and December 31st, which grossed the most. But that's not usually...
If you stop counting on December 31st.
Because that's not usually what people mean when they say that. They mean of all the movies that were released in that year, which went on to gross the most.
And that's been the default. That's the default for every box office list.
It's just how we commonly understand when you say, like, what was the most popular movie of 2014? You don't mean within the parameters of 2014. You mean that opened.
So it makes total sense for a site to redesign it and then make the default for one of the most popular lists to show data that's actually not accurate for the year unless you stop counting at December 31st, which, by the way, almost nobody does. As a matter of fact, the calendar release is a very niche figure, which is now the default when the average person goes to it's almost like if you were looking for the actual numbers, and I actually put together a little comparison. 7 of the last 11 years, if you were to just look it up on Box Office Mojo, on that default look, which calendar grosses, again, you don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that term means.
It's just not...
7 of the last 11 years on the default view display completely incorrectly. So let's say you're a student looking to do a research project, unless you know to pull down that little menu and then click in-year gross, which is another term I've never heard. Yeah. And by the way, what does that even mean? As a matter of fact, if it's called in-year gross, like you would think that it would mean in the year that it's not...
It should be extra year gross.
Extra year. No, in-year gross actually means the gross that goes past the year, whereas calendar gross gross. I don't know what the hell that means.
If you bring that back up, you can see how confusing it is.
It's extremely confusing.
Well, because look at 2014. A movie like American Sniper, because it opened so close to the end of the year, would never have any chance in the calendar grosses of being the highest grossing movie, because it's 2 years.
If you're doing research for a Schmodown type competition, and the question is, what's the highest grossing film of 2014? If you're trying to research that and you go to Box Office Mojo and you look it up and it says Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't think it's unheard of that maybe you might think, oh, well, that's what it says. Right. Is there a weird pull-down menu with vague terms that I've never heard of before that I should adjust and change with no explanation unless I click the help section, which is in a little thing that you have to scroll through? No. So not only did they strip the functionality out, and not only is a lot of it behind a paywall, but a lot of the new stuff doesn't make any damn sense. Yeah. So congratulations, Box Office Mojo, on your new format and your wonderful, wonderful new era. It's a real great time for those of us that needed your site to do things like this show.
They've got the wrong year for Avatar. That's like so confusing.
Well, because it made most of its money in 2010.
But that's not the year that it came out. It's just that's going to be very confusing.
It's extremely confusing.
It's not right.
Those are not terms that have ever existed before now.
I don't know.
Why would you default to the least comprehensible version?
Well, you would just think, even if you were going to do that, even if you were like, look, this is the way we think is more accurate, or this is the way we think people want it, you would have to do a blog post, do an announcement like, hey, we've changed up the way that this works, to explain it, because otherwise people are just going to go to that page and be confused.
I often, when people talk about like the worst movies ever made, I often point at The Happening as a case of a movie where you did everything incorrectly, objectively. Like everything in The Happening was done. It was the directing is wrong. Yeah. The tone is wrong. But it's glorious and delightful because of that. This is literally, I don't know how they could have done anything worse than what they've done here.
Yeah, it's very strange.
There are some heroes out there right now that organized on Reddit that are working to rebuild Box Office Mojo, and basically with all of the functionality plus. God bless you. I don't know how to code, or I'd join you. That's a ways out. That's a lot of coding that has to be done.
Sure.
There are some other sources. A lot of them you're going to look in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen as we go through the numbers today, because there are a few sources that I would like to credit. Sites that I have used in conjunction with Box Office Mojo that are now shouldering a great burden of the load. One of them, The Numbers, the-numbers.com, has been very receptive, has already said, send us your suggestions, has already altered their site to say, hey, we heard this and we changed this and we're working on this.
That's good, smart. It's like this is an opportunity for other players. I mean, I'm sure if you've been doing a box office site, Box Office Mojo has been so dominant for so long, people just automatically know it.
Because they had everything you needed.
Right. So
and now they have nothing you need.
This is a rare opportunity for some of the smaller players in that field to like, well, now's your chance.
And I would like to point out
Become the ultimate site.
As I mentioned, the actual numbers came in as we're sitting here almost over an hour ago. The Numbers has always updated them in real time. Box Office Mojo, every week, the second that last actual number came in, would refresh and list the weekend actuals. I should note, again, as I was filming this, I sat down an hour after the actuals had come in. Box Office Mojo had yet to update their site, which included the wrong movie as the #1 movie because things were so close. So not only did they strip everything out of the site, put it behind a paywall, get rid of a bunch of the stuff that people like me really like to use when looking at box office data and analyzing it. They're also not updating the site as well.
Confusing. It's almost like they want the producer style. They want people to stop using. Maybe it's expensive to run and they're not making enough money on it, and they didn't just want to shut it down. They want to like pull a Bialystock and
we're going to talk about the Joker title because that's a big thing, but really just you are the worst. Whoever's idea this was to do it this way, you want to put it behind a paywall, I get it. We did that here. It failed spectacularly, but if you want to try it, fine. We did it. We tried it. But you got to you got to offer more.
Yeah,
not less.
Right. If you want me to pony up the $5 a month, I'm not saying I definitely wouldn't, but you just got to sweeten that deal.
But why are you making it worse?
Right. You got to like sell me on it.
Yes.
Not make it and wind it down before you then try to sell me.
They're asking for money for an objectively inferior product. This makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't know.
None.
Pete Mojo, tell the rest of your team to get on this. We're upset.
This is one of those baffling things. it's a combination of 5,000 things that annoy the piss out of me, and it's all in one cute little package full of garbage. So anyway.
We're going to keep doing the show.
I'm going to figure it out.
Right.
But if some of the features if maybe we're not quite as deep divey in the next few weeks, it's because I'm trying to adjust and figure out how to find time to do the amount of like actual mathematical calculations now.
Right.
Because now Box Office Mojo has decided to make people go back to doing actual math rather than install a drop-down menu on their new site.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. Maybe they'll change their mind. I doubt it.
I doubt they'll change their mind, although there has been a lot. I'm sure they didn't anticipate the amount of uproar.
How can you not? It'd be like if you rent a library and then you renovated it, and when you opened it up, half the books were gone, and they took the card catalog and they mixed it up into like this weird system that only I understand, and then people are complaining. They're like, I don't understand what the problem is.
Yeah, I know. They seemed unprepared. IMDb, Box Office Mojo, these are big websites. They seem to me to be not prepared for the backlash that they were getting this week. So I'm hoping there's some other development that they're going to announce.
We'll see. Anyway, bear with us. At Box Office Mojo, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. Let them know.
You want to let them know what, or don't take my word for it. Go poke around.
Yeah.
And then let them know what you think of the new design. But thank you to the other people that have stepped up. As I mentioned, you can see their names down in the corner of the screen as we continue. Thank you for letting me get off my chest, Lon. Before we go to the news about Joker becoming the highest grossing worldwide rated R film of all time, let's take a quick look at the top 5 for this weekend again. Just to close out, numbers 3, 4, and 5. The Addams Family there at number 3, edging out Zombieland. I think that might have been another switch from the estimates to the actual. So. Addams Family holding it looked like it was well positioned. Yeah. They released it in a good spot. It's a family film, animated film, tying in with Halloween.
It seems like it's finding an audience. Yeah. I feel like it's becoming like a buzzy movie that people enjoyed.
Zombieland taking a bit of a dive, especially for a comedy. So it seems like perhaps the hardest core of the hardcore went out on opening weekend. But as I mentioned last week, not a huge budget on that movie. So if it can hang in there, maybe take advantage of Halloween.
Yeah, I think
plus you add in rentals and TV and all that stuff. It's likely
it's going to have value on some streaming platform.
Yeah, somewhere. And then at number 5, Countdown, which literally the shortest review I've ever done on this channel was for Countdown. It was 3.5 minutes long. I talked about it for 3 minutes and I ran out of stuff to say. It's the obligatory Halloween horror release for this past weekend.
I do like the tagline, "Death, there's an app for that."
There's an app for that.
All right, well done.
I wish the rest of the movie had been as clever as that
it's
tagline.
like, okay, you got there.
It was not. It could have been. Was not. Lon, we mentioned that Joker passed a huge milestone. As a matter of fact, it did. So before we look at the top 5 worldwide for the weekend, we have a new winner for the top R-rated film of all time worldwide. As we mentioned last week, this was likely to happen, but it breezed through this. Joker has passed Deadpool 2 and Deadpool to become the highest grossing worldwide movie with an R rating of all time.
Look at Zazie Beetz, just the queen.
Beetz, number 1, number 2. Look at that.
Queen of R-rated movies.
Queen of R-rated movies. Yeah, she's the Zoe Saldana of the R-rated comic book genre.
She finds her way in all of them.
Joker's at $850 million. It took in, we'll see in a second, another huge chunk of change over the weekend. Lon, it's steaming toward $900 million. If it hangs in, this could be steaming toward $1 billion.
Could be.
Without a Chinese release.
Yeah.
It is not likely to be released in China. You never say never, but given the censors and given everything else, it's reported that it's unlikely that Joker will come out in China without heavy cuts, which I doubt that
I don't think
anyone, the studio would want to agree to.
No.
And we'll talk about the issue of the Chinese censorship board when we talk about the worldwide releases, but 2/3 of its gross still coming from international sales. So not just a domestic hit and a domestic gross that's fueling it. As a matter of fact, it's not yet in the top 5 domestic R-rated films. A global hit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we talked a little bit before about driving the conversation, and I think, in 2019, there's so much. There's streaming, there's video games, there's TV, there's movies, there's so much competing for people's eyeballs that if you can get to a place like Joker got where cutting across all media. This is just a thing people are discussing.
Yeah.
It's part of the national or international dialogue. I think that's so crazy valuable. And it doesn't happen that much. It only happens a few times a year now. And so when you're on the crest of that wave, I think it really carries a lot of weight.
Well, and I think the other thing you have to look at, particularly when you're talking about China not, as it helped with Venom last year, doing so well, you don't have the Chinese element here. I think the other thing that helps, and we've talked about it, is the fact that it's not quote unquote just a comic book movie, but but it has that kind of auteur sensibility that I think plays in Europe. Well, plays in a lot of markets where if it were more of an event film, it would probably still do well, but maybe not drive quite as much.
And I mean, it won Venice. Like when you're talking about a movie that's like winning major esteemed film festivals. So yeah, there is an older crowd, you know, a more sort of sophisticated adult crowd that would normally be going to see things like Oscar movies and those kinds of things, maybe would be avoiding popcorn tentpoles. They're going to go see Joker, in addition to all the popcorn movie fans and event movie fans and comic book
I think when
fans.
people talk about it, it's not so much, you know, Stop the Presses, a comic book movie is making $850 million. It's that it's this one.
Yes.
This one, which is so unique, even inside it, even more so, I think, than Logan, which had a very hard edge, which is very gritty, rated R, etc.
Logan had the violence, but I don't know if it was not a social commentary in the way that Joker.
Yes,
it's not engaging with social and political stuff. It's really just kind of a gritty, dark X-Men.
But even sometimes those kinds of films play well domestically, and the message is lost. It kind of goes to what we've been saying about this film all along, which is that it serves a lot of different masters, and it does so really well. We even mentioned it in our review, the fact that it hits a lot of buckets,
and it's pointed and it feels specific and of its world. And I mean, obviously there's a lot of weight to the Joaquin performance, but it is not very specifically about it's about police brutality. It's about racial violence. It's sort of a general, it's about the state of things in our world now. So it is relatable to people all around the world. You don't have to know about the American political discussion right now to sort of get into it.
Even in a cultural vacuum, meaning outside of the United States here and now, I think it has a message that resonates with people. And you're seeing the strength of that. And what that can bring you. So, as we mentioned, we talked about on SJU last week, but this is going to be a massively profitable movie, as profitable or more so than Avengers: Infinity War because of its low budget.
We were making jokes before it opened about, they were sort of teasing, well, he might come back and do a Joker too. Who knows? And it was kind of a gag, but I don't think so anymore.
I don't know.
I hope they don't.
I hope they don't. Don't do it. Don't box office mojo this thing, Warner Brothers.
Yeah, those conversations are happening.
I'm sure those conversations are. Somebody's having that conversation, but we'll see. I think that it's. I think it plays just fine on its own, but
I don't know how you do it, but. They're going to try to figure it out.
Congratulations, Joker, the new highest-grossing R-rated worldwide film of all time. And as best I can, I will continue tracking how it's doing domestically. It's getting up there as far as domestic R-rated releases.
Yes.
I think probably next week we'll have a little bit more news to share on that. But for now, king of the hill as far as worldwide R-rated films go. Let's look at the top 5 worldwide over the weekend. And an interesting story with the number 1 film. It's a movie that played in China called Better Days. It takes the number 1 slot worldwide, over 85.2 million, just edging out Maleficent in its second week. Better Days has had a bit of a interesting path. If you look at that poster there on the side there, it says 6/27, June 27th. This film was originally set to be released in China this summer, pulled by the Chinese government shortly before release. The censorship boards did not give it the go-ahead. It got a release date 6 days before it came out, meaning it was off the schedule, and then 6 days before it came out, it was given its date. That meant there was very little time to do publicity for the film. And while it did well in its opening weekend, there were, thoughts that if it had been allowed to stick with its original date, it perhaps could have done even better because of the window it played in, and because they had already done the marketing blitz.
Yeah, people would have been looking forward to it, known when it was coming.
Yeah, and this has actually happened. We talked about how they just had the anniversary history of the communist China and everything, there has actually been more of a crackdown of late. While there's been an influx of a lot of national Chinese films, there's also been reports of a lot more of a crackdown on what films are coming out.
Sure.
Even studio films, while a lot of more studio films in one aspect are going through, a week before it came out, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was pulled from theaters in China. There's never any official word as to why, because you're dealing with a regime. But there were
the Bruce Lee stuff.
There were rumors that Bruce Lee's daughter had petitioned the government not to release it because of the portrayal of Bruce Lee. Who knows if that's the truth? Quentin Tarantino and the studio did not refuse to recut the movie, which means that the film will not be released in China. But this is, in some ways, China is increasing its film output and increasing the number of films that it lets in. But you're also seeing reports of the censorship boards being even tougher, particularly around political anniversaries, as we are.
And, we've been talking on the show since I've joined the show. We've been talking about as an ongoing trend, China's taking a bigger and more prominent place in the international film world all the time. They're financing more movies. The Chinese market is becoming so crucial for all these movies, and that gives them more sway. The more that Hollywood and all of these international film companies are dependent on the Chinese audience, the more they have to listen to the concerns of the Chinese government and how these things open.
And this was a film that dealt with very serious issues, very dark issues. There were rumors that it was flagged out of concern just for its content in general. There were some cuts made to the movie before it was released. But, I think that's the thing that some of us, myself included, forget a lot of times when we talk about the Chinese market is it is not a free market in the way that the United States box office market is. You always have that looming figure of it has got to get past a filter before it comes out. That's why people show so much concern about Hollywood films getting so close to China is, are they going to begin catering content-wise their films to get past the Chinese censors?
Because the real danger is not that the movies get made. I mean, there is a danger that the movies get made and then the Chinese government says, no, you have to censor this, that. Yeah. But do filmmakers and producers then start in advance saying, well, no, I'm not going to tell that story. Or I'm not going to depict that in that way because, well, China wouldn't like it. And then you're really changing the content of American movies to suit the Chinese audience.
There were whispers of that with Doctor Strange. There have been whispers of that with other films.
Sure. So, and I mean, it has to play in your mind. If you're an American filmmaker making a film that is certainly financially dependent on China, but even just going to concern matters of interest to China, it's going to be on your mind. Like, is this going to get to show in China?
It's got to be in your head. Yeah. The other films on the worldwide list for this past weekend: Holdovers, Maleficent, banking in $83.6 million. Joker with another $67 million. Addams Family, $22 million, and Zombieland Double Tap, $20 million. Not on that list, Gemini Man. It is fading quickly. Its global gross right now, and this is opening in every major market, is at $148 million off a reported $130 million plus budget. It's going to lose a lot of money from the financiers behind that.
They're in the red still for a while.
They're going to be in the red to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, according to some reports. So Ang Lee's latest experiment in high frame rate does not appear to be a success.
Ooh. Maybe scale back from the high frame rate experiments.
You got to gamble sometimes, and sometimes you lose. Juan, let's look from the world to the top per theater average, and the winner is a documentary called No Safe Spaces. It was released this weekend in one theater in Arizona. This features
shut up, Statue of Liberty.
This features Adam Carolla and Dennis Prager, who's a conservative personality. They examine what they perceive to be academic and societal restrictions on free speech, particularly relating to social and conservative ideology. It's got a focus on academia, what they believe to be a restrictive limit on speech from colleges and universities.
The idea that, liberal campus professors won't let conservative speakers come to campus, that sort of thing.
Yes.
We hear about all the time.
It also touches on the world of comedy, who's allowed to be funny. But basically, it seems that I have not seen it because it was played only in Arizona. It seems that the thesis of the film is that, we are too now restrictive and want to sort of coddle everyone from speech that they or that you can't speak now without being penalized for that speech in an unfair way.
And so to prove their theory, they made a movie that they released everywhere.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yes, they did.
Makes sense.
So that movie will be No Safe Spaces will be continuing its rollout at theaters and then nationwide.
Like a PragerU YouTube video feature length.
Yeah, it's got some folks in it too.
Tim Allen, I saw.
Yeah, he's in it. Yeah, Adam Carolla. I mean,
Adam Carolla.
His name's on the poster.
Dennis Prager.
Others who I declined to name on this program.
Oh, wow.
Don't care to. All right. So yeah, I should note again, as I mentioned, that number was taken from thenumbers.com because as of the reporting, Box Office Mojo not only did not have their updated weekend actuals, but did not even list a per theater average for most of the movies on their chart.
Was that like you may not know this, was that like a Kevin Smith situation, like were Carolla and Prager there?
Well, it was like it was kind of like an event.
So it was a little bit like what, Muse and Kevin Smith did for the Jay and Silent Bob movie
last week. Yeah,
they held an event. They attended. Okay,
yes,
so they're road showing this movie.
Right. Yeah. Well, at least this past week. It was like a big event.
They love them in Arizona. They love Carolla and Prager.
They like the movie. 45K. That's not bad.
That's good.
One theater per screen. That's not
right.
bad.
But it's like people also they're going out to see the celebrities. It's
probably there's a personality aspect.
Q&A aspect.
Exactly. Much like with Jay and Silent Bob.
That's what I was saying.
Reboot. Yeah. So yeah, that number. Thank you, thenumbers.com for even including that number on your site, which Box Office Mojo
we appreciate
did not. Let's look at the 2019 box office domestically. No change from last week on this chart, although Joker continues to advance on Aladdin. We'll see if he can get up to that 355. That's a pretty high hurdle to leap, but 300 looks like it's easily within reach. No other big changes there, but we're getting into the holiday / Thanksgiving season, so there's going to be some breakthroughs there.
It's getting tough, but we've got a few strong contenders yet to get. Your Frozen 2s, your Rise of Skywalker.
Knives Out, maybe even.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of star power behind that, a lot of hype. We'll see. Several movies that could be jumping up. Jumanji into that hallowed air there.
We're about to talk about yet another one. Could happen.
Which one? Jumanji?
No, another end of this year.
Oh, yes.
Musical fantasy.
That's right. There is another. Yes. We're about to mount down to it. Yeah. Exactly. Let's look at the worldwide box office. One change as Joker continues to climb up the charts, vaulting over Hobbs and Shaw.
Oh man!
At cresting $850 million, as we mentioned, $1 billion, not out of the question.
Shaw's not going to take this well.
No, Shaw is not going to be happy that Joker.
They don't
leaped
like
over
slights to the family.
But could Joker be the 7th film of the year to join the $1 billion club? I think it'll be much like with Avengers Endgame setting the record. I think it's gonna be close, but we'll see. We'll see if that could be number 7.
It's doable there. It could happen.
Doable. It could happen. I mean, I think it's going to be another sort of war of attrition, but you never know. It could definitely get to that $1 billion mark. We'll keep tracking it on the show on sites like The Numbers, which provides wonderful worldwide and international and domestic numbers. So thank you, The Numbers, for providing that information today. Lon, it is, as always, before we go, time to do the countdown to Cats. Cats will be in theaters before we know it. Because
soon.
Lon, we're at 54 days. 54 days until Cats hits our eyeballs. Maybe for some of us, we'll be lucky to catch it a little early. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? We'll see. But as we've been doing for the last several weeks, Lon, we are going to not only mount down to Cats, we're going to meet a cat, and this is a cat who is a big character on the stage, but looking to be a breakout character in the film version.
Okay.
Today we are talking about Victoria. Victoria is a featured dancer in the Cats stage production. Doesn't have a spotlight song like a lot of the other Cats, but she is often said to embody the spirit of the show. So she has a lot of spotlight dances.
Sure.
She is a key part of Grisabella's arc in the show. She's a young white kitten, generally characterized as one of the purest of the Jellicle cats.
Okay.
Now, Francesca Hayward, who's on your left there, she is a ballerina who's appeared in the Royal Ballet, extremely talented dancer. She's the one in the trailer that's introducing It appears that they are setting up Victoria to be a key a member of the film, perhaps because she is sort of the newest of the cats. She may be the audience surrogate through which we're introduced to the Jellicle tribe and the world of these cats. We do know that Victoria is going to have a song in the film. It's going to be a new song written by Andrew Lloyd Webber with lyrics from Taylor Swift, who's in the film but is not playing
I just want to see the featurette about those two together writing a song. That sounds as entertaining as the musical cast.
I mean, they have like the featurette, but that's not the truth. That's all posed.
No, I mean, I want to see the real fly-on-the-wall version of that story. Also, Victoria has a normal name. She's the only cat that we've met.
It feels like she should have been like Victor Ripidipsy.
Yeah, like how come the others are all Bustopher Jones? And like she's got like Victoria, just like a person name.
She's got I don't know why she has a person name. And how does somebody with Victoria fit in with old Deuteronomy and Grisabella?
Yeah, she's meeting all these other cats. Like, what is
Bustopher Jones? Bombalurina.
What's wrong with Lisa?
McCavity. Yeah, Victoria.
They're like a Sam.
But Victoria, it looks like will go from certainly a prominent figure in the cat stage production to perhaps the key figure.
Yeah, the movie seems like so we're sort of expanding the Cats verse in a way.
Maybe she may be doing in the film what I'm doing on the show, which is like she will be introducing you to the world of cats. But as it turns out, that's a superfluous thing because we're already doing it here.
It's done. So you're going to go into that theater ready to go.
I read that as I was doing the research that when Phantom of the Opera passed Cats for the longest running Broadway show, it was Victoria who was chosen as the character. I guess they did a thing where she came on stage and like passed the torch.
Oh, how nice.
So there is actually a Cats Phantom of the Opera crossover.
Wow.
Canonically, that happened for one night at least on Broadway.
Joel Schumacher, there's your next idea.
Yeah, there you go.
Cats comes out.
Cats of the Opera.
Yeah.
Phantom of the Cats? I don't know.
So one of those.
Somebody else figure it out. I'm tired. So that's Victoria. I think perhaps we'll be getting to know a lot more of Victoria in
it seems like
Cats film.
She's going to have a featured role.
She's
in a lot of the trailer. I now realize upon seeing her that she's all over the trailer.
Yeah, I think she may be perhaps the lead character.
Might, right. I think your audience surrogate guess is probably right on. That we'll probably meet her first, and then it's her adventure meeting all these other cats, and we're following along.
Yeah, so
right.
Keep an eye out for Victoria and McCavity the mystery cat.
He's the one in a hat.
There's a hat on. Lon, opening this week, you've got a few options. Sure. Terminator Dark Fate.
Yeah.
Review is dropping here on Fandom Entertainment tomorrow. The latest film in the Terminator franchise, to disregard the other films in the Terminator
franchise. All just go back to Terminator 2. You never have to go. They all forget everything that happened after Terminator 2.
Go back to 2.
Just go back to Terminator.
We're doing it again. We're going back to Terminator 2. Linda Hamilton's back.
That's always they just kept taking it on weird turns after that, and it never worked out.
Edward Norton, Motherless Brooklyn. This is going to be an awards push for him.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis also in this film.
Big cast in this one. It's based on a well-regarded novel.
Yeah.
Blanking on it's Jonathan Lethem.
Perhaps. I don't know. Yeah. But written and I believe directed by Ed Norton.
Yes.
Edward Norton. He's making a big awards push for this. Arctic Dogs. That's an animated film. That's all I really know. It's an animated film. Angelica Houston. Voicing what I'm guessing is a dog.
They're sled dogs, probably, something like that.
Snow dogs, perhaps.
Maybe there's snow. They're dogs. Wild hogs.
Some kind of snow dogs. And then a movie that is hitting wide release that's been getting awards alert. Put your Oscar hat on. Harriet, starring Cynthia Erivo.
This is the Harriet Tubman.
The Harriet Tubman biopic.
Yeah.
Cynthia Erivo got a little bit of Oscar buzz for a couple movies, for Widows and Bad Times at the El Royale last year. Those didn't quite pan out, but there's been some heavy buzz for her, along with Renee Zellweger and Judy, for Oscars this year as part of this film. So keep an eye out for Harriet.
What a story! It's unbelievable there aren't multiple Harriet Tubman movies already.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. Like when you saw the trailer for this, you're like, oh, they're finally doing a Harriet Tubman movie. Wait, why haven't there been?
How have they not? How have we done? How many P.T. Barnum movies have we done?
Right, because it's an exciting, epic. It's not like a dull story that you should learn about because it's like important. It's like this is exciting.
Like Abraham Lincoln was like sitting at a desk and he's gotten like 80 movies.
Right.
Harriet Tubman was like in the shit.
So, yeah, if
sorry.
you-
And you know, she was out there.
Like having adventures. I
Yeah.
mean, going out into the world.
I don't know if I call them adventures, but it was
They
certainly.
were. I mean, like, it's heroism.
It was heroic, yes.
Rawest form.
Absolutely.
So anyway,
Yeah.
if they do a good job, it's such a dramatic story. It feels like
Yeah.
it's sort of,
Well,
you're all set.
Check that out. Could be a key player for the awards season. And
I'd like to
Lon,
see it, yeah.
that wraps up our charting for today. Anything you want to plug?
No, just follow me on Twitter. That's my same plug as always, at LONS.
Yeah. I'm going to plug thenumbers.com.
Oh, that's right, yes.
ComScore. I'm also going to plug the guys who are heading up the Rebuild the Box Office Mojo project.
Support
I'm going to try to find that information, and maybe next week I'll give those guys some loving and links if they've got them and everything.
Fantastic.
The new Box Office Mojo sucks. And I
We
hate
leave you with one thought from this week's charting. It's that the new Box Office Mojo sucks.
It sucks, and we're going to try our best to overcome it here on Charting, so please bear with us. Till next time, I'm Dan Murrell. Thanks for watching.